Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, Shorts. There's no co-host on these Shorts episodes. These are now around 6 to 8 minute long observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 6 to 8 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book that has been sitting in your Amazon queue that you just haven't been able to bring yourself to purchase for around the last 6 months. I believe that we are beginning to come around the corner on delivering solutions to the meaning problem in the West, but the solutions to the meaning problem and all of the other knock-on problems that go along with the meaning problem won't show up, won't appear in the obvious places. We have talked extensively about the meaning problem on this podcast as it relates specifically to leadership and generally to the overall health of the Western world, particularly the United States. We have mentioned that the problem stems from the impact of long Nietzschean nihilism and secular atheistic spiritual posturing toward the God-given glory of humanity. We have noted the presence of technology and the ways in which the internet connects us via social media, but also serves to divide us via consumerism, content, and clicks. We have raised the warning about the large language algorithms that people euphemistically call artificial intelligence, not because such algorithms will take over the world. The golem the secular atheist technologists are building can't overcome its maker, rest assured, but because its maker is seeking to arrogantly become a god in his own time. We have marked and noted the Tower of Babel moments that are sure to occur, and we have documented the books that a leader must read, both now and in the future, from Milton and Shakespeare to Dostoevsky and Didion, to get their minds and hearts right about leadership during these critical and fragile junctures. We've done all this on this podcast and on other shows, and we will continue to do so well into the future. But it is time to note, as we have briefly noted earlier in the year on several of these episodes, that the zeitgeist around Western collapse, the appearing inevitability of transhuman change and merging, and the decline in competence among the young, those bereft of meaning, and the ever-present inattentive individuals, has begun to shift away from the precipice of moral and cultural cliffs. At least we believe it's begun to shift away imperceptibly in the United States. How can we be so confident that this almost, as we said already, imperceptible shift is occurring? Well, part of the dynamics that globalization drove for the last 80 to 100 odd years is now rushing to a completion and a close, driven by the vagaries of the knock-on effects from COVID, for sure, but also driven by the facts on the ground of demography, geography, and just raw material physical reality. Part of our assuredness is that we are hearing and seeing from more and more people, from creators online to people who we talk to in real life, who are waking up to the idea that there is a problem, and who are also waking up to the ideas that there are solutions. And finally, the base or concrete slab of our blessed confidence comes from the fact that Jesus himself said he would, quote, build his church upon this rock, and the gates of hell would not prevail against it. Well, the gates of hell always believe they're prevailing, all the way up to the moment of defeat. Kind of like the evil lord of Mordor, Sauron, he of the all-seeing red-wreathed eye in Lord of the Rings. We broke that book down as well on the podcast this year. At a more material level, we are seeing actual material action, of course, by individuals and small groups, moving forward practical proposals for solutions to the current spiritual, moral, ethical, and even philosophical crises the West is faced with. You may never have personally heard of the development of parallel economies, back to the land movements, homesteading. You may never have personally met someone who is an advocate for Christian nationalism. You may never have talked with someone who came out of the breakup of a mainline church and now is founding a smaller one with a massive YouTube or Twitter following. You may not be a person who ever interacts with someone who is involved in the world of the development of new forms of media, like this podcast, for ever-growing niche audiences. And you may not be part of the pushback against large institutions of power in the space of technology and politics. And of course, you may not be aware of the legal attempts by small, ethically driven people to stand up and firmly and quietly insist repeatedly that the solutions to many, many postmodern meaning problems might require a return to a pre-modern mindset. You may not be hearing about any of these innovations and changes and solutions if you are stuck, if you are trapped, if you are addicted to the consumer-based echo chambers of social media. You especially won't hear about any of this if you are consuming the nonsense entertainment and news content, I use that term in air quotes, on most streaming platforms. If that's where you're getting your news and information about the world from, and if you believe that you are informed, you're never going to be able to discern the solutions to the problems bedeviling the culture all around you, because faux talking heads yelling about the problem some more always serves to gin up more dopamine-driven attention and behavior and keep you locked in for just another advertising break. Yeah, there are many of us out here who know exactly what the game is that's being played. Look, proposals and experiments and solutions require time to manifest material results. The postmodern world we are living in right now wasn't built in a day. It took at least a century for us to get here with all of our problems and foibles and bedevilment, and it might take a century or more for us to get out of this place. And getting out, the process of exiting, may look a lot like the end of a civilization, but take heart. It's really only the end of an era. Now is the time to explore solutions to problems. Start in your own families and communities, and move in concentric circles outward to the edges of your localities, cities, and suburbs. Abandon consumer thinking and behavior on social platforms and realize that those platforms primarily exist to tell the story of the problem you have solved at scale. Start listening to podcasts like this one and long-form conversations that challenge your ideas and preconceived notions. Do not look to large institutions, large political parties or movements, or large corporations, or even to Washington, D.C. or Hollywood to quote-unquote save us. They are always behind the curve, late to the party, and seeking easy shortcuts. Instead, the solutions to the problems we have lie not in talking more and more about the problem itself. That's just feeding more worship to the idols of anxiety, fear, and worry. But instead, the solutions to the problems we have lie in exploring common sense solutions that will seem radical to the ears of people who have long abandoned common sense in favor of the dopamine-driven machine. But don't worry. Many of those people to whom you will have to deliver solutions, they'll be your neighbors. May Providence forge ahead of all of us. And well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening and subscribing to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast. If you're listening to this on any of the major podcast players, like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, please go ahead and leave us a 5-star review and write a little bit in there. A couple of sentences is good enough. That actually helps us game those algorithms that I was just maybe addressing. And, of course, it helps us grow the show. Tell all your family, tell all your friends, and tell the leaders in your life that you know that need to be listening to this show that this show exists. By the way, if you want to get started on the leadership path yourself, or you know some people who need to go on the leadership path, HSCT Publishing, the home company of Leadership Toolbox and Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, can help you and your team do that. So check out our training webinars, coaching services, and more at leadershiptoolbox.us. We are remote, we're live, we're in person, we're on video, and we've got leadership development solutions for your civic group, nonprofit staff, public sector staff, or even your private sector leaders. And of course, you're going to want to check out our video-based subscription service at leadingkeys.com. That's leadingkeys.com for leadership development on demand. You don't like videos, you don't like training, but you really like the podcast? Well, I would also recommend reading a book. Matter of fact, I'd recommend reading my most recent book, 12 Rules for Leaders, The Foundation of Intentional Leadership. You can get that in paperback, hardcover, or as an ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Ingram Spark, and any other place that you order books online. Finally, of course, we're on YouTube just like everybody else is. We'd love to have you help us grow the YouTube channel, so like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the HSCT Publishing channel on YouTube. Just search for HSCT Publishing, or you can search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button. Subscribing helps us grow the show. As it does with the audio, just is the same with the video. All right, that's it for me.